Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever your situation may be. Welcome back to Awakening Your Spiritual Truth. I'm Sananda Allsgood, and today we're going to talk about judgment. As with most things in life, there are various types of judgment, and the one that I'm going to be dealing with today is the judgment of others. In our negative society, which we've addressed before, there seems to be this idea that we have the right to judge anyone for anything: their clothing, the size of their body, what car they drive, whatever. And yet, when we get down to it, down to the base seed of that reasoning, do we really know what that person is creating for their path in life? No, we don't. Because we're not the ones that are walking that path. They're the ones that are going through all of the stuff, not us. For example, child molesters. And I know this is a hot topic with a lot of people. But if you bear with me and hear me out, maybe you can understand why I am going to say what I'm going to say. A child molester is not born. They are created. And when we take the time to find out the history of one of the individuals that might be involved in this, I would bet 99.9% of the time that it is some type of history of their own molestation that has given them this idea of how to act and what to do in this world. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say it's right or wrong, good or bad, because there is no such thing. I've said this before. We, in our society, we tend to do this. We want to throw them in jail and throw the key away. But what does that do? Does it stop the idea of molestation? Does it stop the process that this individual is mentally going through? Or would it be better if they were evaluated by a healthcare professional to find out what their history was and what their ideology is and why they are who they are? In my mind, and I'm just going to go through my, obviously it's the only one I can, but through my opinion, that would be more productive, not only for society, but for the person itself. The same goes with our legal system, period. We believe that we have the right to judge a person's actions, regardless of what it is, based on these laws that were created by society to provide guidelines. Now, I'm not saying that the idea of guidelines is a bad thing, but when we have what society calls victimless crimes, such as drug use and stuff like that, why do we feel inclined to throw them into jail? Does that do anybody any good? The drug abuser is then put into a place where the lifestyle is hardened, where you either get tough or die kind of thing. And for smoking a joint, now granted, our laws are starting to change on that. I'm just using this as an example. When we are put into a position of judging a person, such as being selected for a jury, we are spoon-fed the facts that each side wants us to consider to come up with a judgment of guilty or not guilty. Now, I'm going to tell you this story, and I'm not doing it to provide anyone with an excuse to get out of jury duty. It is my philosophy. It is the way I handle things. I refuse to be on a jury because I honestly do not believe it is my right nor my place to judge a person for their actions in life. So when I was called for jury duty, the judge made the question, or put out the question, is there any reason anyone feels that they cannot perform in an unbiased manner? And I raised my hand. And he asked me why I thought that. And I told him, I mean, the courtroom's full of people that are prospective jurors. And I told him it would be better if we did it in his chambers, if I explained it in his chambers, which is what we did. We went back there. And, of course, the defense attorney and the defendant was there and the district attorney. And the judge asked me, and I told him, I said, it is my belief system that I don't have the right to judge anyone. So regardless of what the DA provides, I am not going to judge this person as guilty for anything. Of course, the judge dismissed me. Like I said, I'm not telling you this so that you will have an excuse to get out of jury duty, but no defense attorney or no DA, and especially not a judge, will have someone on a jury who says, I'm not going to find anybody guilty, because it negates the whole process. And it costs a lot of money to put somebody on trial. Then there's the idea of judging a situation. And what I'm talking about is when you watch the nightly news and you hear a story about a woman who does something to her child, whatever it is. We often run to the conclusion, without knowing any of the facts, or very few, if any, that this woman is a bad person, that she has no reason to do this to her child. And I would offer that instead of running to that conclusion, that we stop and we do not pass a judgment on them, because we do not know what the background, what the history is. Now, I'm going to use a personal experience to demonstrate this. And it's a personal one. It was a painful one for me. It took me a long time to get over it. My biological father became an alcoholic and was very abusive to me. When I was 5 years old, he tried to kill me with his fist. Now, back when I was 5, that was many, many, many years ago, they had coffee tables with this artificial finish on top. I forget what they called it. But it was supposed to be a nice looking thin piece of wood that would offer up a shelf or a surface. Now, I had done something that irritated him, and I don't recall what it was. It's not important. But the fact is that he came after me and he swung his fist so hard that he actually drove the leg of that coffee table through that artificial surface, which is tough. It was very tough, very brittle. Um, I had moved, so he missed me, but he hit that coffee table. Now, fortunately for me, anyway, my mom decided that was the straw that broke the camel's back, took a cast iron frying pan, and chased him out of the house, telling him not to come back again. I carried that for 37 years, thinking that uh, I was less than, not worthy. He used words like I was stupid and on and on. So he was not only physical abusive, but he was verbally abusive. It wasn't until I was 42 years old that I found some of the history of him when he was a child, well, young teenager, and what he went through. And I am not going to divulge that. It is not relevant. But suffice it to say that with that, I understood his background. I was able to not only forgive him, but forgive myself for holding on to that memory, the hurt, and the judgment of him. And the judgment which was so powerful within me. It really did cause dis-ease within me. I was able to let that go. And if we are able to stop ourselves when we hear something like this and stop the judgment from springing up into our mind and becoming this red light or red flag, and we look for underlying factors, the things that the news media doesn't tell you, the things that the DA or the defense attorney does not tell you, then we might have the opportunity and the wherewithal within ourselves to realize there's always a reason that a person acts out, be it whatever. The bottom line, the ultimate reason being they are here for an experience, and we are not here to judge them for that experience, except on the human level. Because and this is where the dichotomy comes in. It can be confusing and tough, but on the higher self level is where we cause ourselves to stop and say, wait a minute. On the human level, if that's part of our process, if that's part of our path of having judgment, and for me, obviously it was walking 37 years through that judgment, through that anger and that hatred of that man, my father, there's a reason and there's a purpose. So the options for us are to stop. Try to understand that purpose. Try to see the reasoning for them acting the way that they did, then letting it go. There is nothing in the universe that tells us that we have to hold on to these events that occur in our life. Small things, the name calling, that has absolutely no impact on you personally unless you allow it to. And that's the key. We have to make the judgment or the choice of whether we're going to allow it to affect us or not. This is one of the judgments that we do need to use. And it is simply our judgment of what works best for me, what works for my higher good, what is going to provide me with the most benefit. And let's face it, that's why we're here. We are here to have experiences and to benefit from those experiences. Benefit being create the intelligence, the memories, and the connection with the knowledge that we have. Now, I would like to address judgment and relationships, as I'm sure many of you have experienced. Judgment is a major aspect in relationships. And depending on how we utilize it, it can either make or break us. When our significant other might be going through something and they might withhold or pull back a little bit in their compassion or their connection with us, do we take that as they're changing or they're pulling back? Or are we giving them the allowance and the room to process whatever they're going through? The choice is ours. Now, in my mind, and this is just me, if my significant other is having an issue or a hard time with something, I am going to make myself available as a sounding board, because often we can see things better when we put it out in front of us than trying to deal with everything up here. And in the process of being that sounding board, I will sit there, shut up, and let them talk. I don't have to fix their problem unless they ask for help or suggestions. Let them speak. Let them get it out. The Native Americans had an incredible process called the talking stick. When they would gather around in their circles, whoever held that stick had the floor. Nobody spoke until that person was done. And we have lost that ability in our society, especially nowadays when everyone is in such a hurry and we don't take time to listen to a person. And trust me, I am as guilty at it as the next person of interrupting somebody when I'm not being conscious within myself. Working on that big time. That's one of my buttons that I need to work on. So, yeah. Anyway, when we allow people to speak their minds and to get the whatever is off their chest, then we are not only not judging them, but we are showing respect to them. Respect of wanting to know what they are going through, wanting to know about them. And let's face it, when you get down to it, everybody wants to talk about themselves. Hard fact, you know. Oh, tell me all about your such and such. And most people will just go off on a rampage. And you sit there and perhaps you, and I know a lot of us have done it. Okay, should have not asked that question. I got a thing, that kind of thing. But if you ask the question, you got to give them the time to at least respond. And don't pass judgment. Now, I have gone a significant amount of time talking about this on this video. It is not complete by any means. So there will be a second video that will pick up and discuss further In the meantime, hopefully you'll chew on what's been said, give it some chance to brew in your mind, and hit the subscribe button if you would, if you are finding this interesting and feeling some quality from it. I'd also appreciate a like button push because that tells the algorithm that, hey, this guy might be worth listening to. Hopefully you think that. If you are so inclined and you would like some supportive written support, you can also check out the website. And I would love to have comments. Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me if you agree or disagree and why. Don't just say, hey, you suck, and not tell me why you think that, because that is not productive. Maybe there's something I'm doing that you feel could be different, and I'm willing to listen. Maybe you find what the information is to be genuinely thought provoking. That would be nice to know too. Because to be honest with you, I'm sitting here looking at a camera. I have no interaction with you yet. So the comments let me know that, number one, you're listening. Number two, you have ideas and opinions. Okay? All right. Have a great day. And I will hopefully see you for the second part of Judgment. And we'll move on from there. Okay? Until then, bye bye.